The federal government says no to religious freedom and yes to mandated contraceptive coverage in health insurance plans, forcing religious employers to violate their faith or pay a fine. This is the Citizenlink Report. I'm Carrie Earll, along with Citizenlink Federal Issues Analyst Ashley Horne. Thanks for joining me, Ashley.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we are in a different location for this edition of Citizenlink Report. We are in the auditorium at Focus on the Family. We're on a set that's been built for our Date Night Challenge, which is an event in February encouraging husbands to take their wives on a date. What a great idea. If you'd like more information on that, you can go to focusonthefamily.com. You know, at Focus on the Family and Citizenlink, a majority of what we do is helping marriages, is helping families thrive. Public policy that we talk about here on Citizenlink Report is a smaller part of that, but it's a very important part. And speaking of public policy, Ashley, late last week, the federal government announced a decision about mandated coverage for health care under the new federal health care law. That really is rocking the boat, if you will, of religious affiliated organizations, because it deals with mandating contraceptives as well as the coverage of FDA-approved drugs that can cause abortions, that may cause abortions. What are you hearing about this?
You know, the huge issue was, religious leaders groups were coming to HHS saying, look, we really want you to include us in the religious exemption to this under the new federal health care law that would require these groups to essentially offer abortifacient coverage or abortifacient drugs that could cause an abortion to their employees. And they said, please include us in this exemption because it's a very narrow religious exemption. It doesn't cover hospitals, schools. It doesn't cover even some of the groups that we work with alongside our allies. So a lot of the pro-life groups will be in trouble here as well. And the government essentially said, no, we are not going to include you. In fact, the only thing we're going to do is we're going to give you 1 year. You have 1 year to decide what you want to do.
This is really astounding because this is perhaps one of the first times that I can think of where the government is really mandating what people of faith can and can't do in their own entities, in their own organizations and institutions as far as their faith. In fact, one of the spokespeople of an organization that's going to be affected by this said basically the government's given us a year to decide how we're going to violate our conscience because that is the only choice. Either you violate your conscience, you make this part of your employee health care plan, or you have to pay a fine to the government. Now, Ashley, in some scenarios, when organizations take money from the government, there are strings attached to that. There are certain things you have to comply with. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about any religiously affiliated organization, institution that just exists in the United States of America to do their mission work. Mm-hmm. They have to abide by this.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like you said, traditionally, it's if you have a grant from the government, there are strings attached. You may or may not choose to do what they want, but you won't get the money. Here, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. In fact, the government's saying, look, we're going to put this out here, and if you don't want to comply, you pay a fine. They're going to make it hard for groups to really go with what they want morally. And if you want to violate your conscience, you can do that. But if you don't, you can just comply with us and not complain.
Well, this has really sent shockwaves through a lot of organizations, and people are really up in arms about it. As we look at the future, we look at what's coming. The decision from the government has said that they have until August 2013 now to make a decision. What recourse is there in the courts, in Congress? Is there anything these groups can do?
There are 2 lawsuits going on right now. Who knows if it's going to be decided? Those lawsuits will be decided before the 2013 deadline. That just remains to be seen. In the meantime, all of these religious groups are left in limbo. What are we going to do? The government saying we're going to make you pay if you have a moral religious belief against abortion.
It's astounding. Well, we will keep people up to date as this develops. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And telling us about this. So we also want to thank you and encourage you for your notes of encouragement, your emails. We really love to hear from you, and we do read all the emails that you send to us at mail@citizenlink.com. That's mail@citizenlink.com. We also want to invite you to join us for praying for our nation. Our religious freedom is a precious legacy for the next generation, and we want to do everything we can to be able to pass that on. And remember, stand tall and be heard.